Okay, so we're here about student motivation. We're going to record the session, and as we go through, you guys are going to notice that I have little notes in red at the bottom of the session of the screen. And I did that purposefully because when you're in a classroom, you have the best ideas, but you can get railroaded and things will distract you, and then you forget all the good things. And so what I did is I put little helpful reminders. So that way we can keep going through our session. We won't forget to do anything, and we'll just keep rolling through. So on this first screen, introductions would be nice. I'm Patty Whitney, and my email's at the top of the screen. I will share the PowerPoint with you, but I haven't yet because sometimes we take a turn and I have to load more information for you. And so I thought, well, we'll start with this. We'll see how far we get. And if we need to take a turn, then I can give you more information about that subject as well. I work for Kentucky A-BRI. The website is on the screen. When you go to the website, you get lots of information, and it will also lead you to the Center for Instructional and Behavioral Research in Schools, cybers.com. On that website, you have lots of options there. There's badges and modules that you can do. There's videos, there's strategies in seconds. So lots of really good information where sometimes, people just get stale and they need more tools in their toolbox. And so it's a good time to look around. It's also, it's just really handy to be able to say, okay, so I've seen this information. Someone shared this with me. This is a trusted source. I have Nina's email on here as well. And I did that purposefully because we team, we work together. And if someone needs to know something, like we were in a meeting today and someone says, I would like more information about a particular topic. So you reach out to those that you get more information, and you share it back. And in education, guys, that's what it's all about, is we share. Very few people say, oh, no, don't use that. That's mine. Very few people say that. Most people say, I would love for you to endorse my product. I would love for you to try this and see how it works for you. So as we move through, we've got, just certain little things that we're going to do. This is the pre-assessment. And so as we go through, I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I'm going to be giving you some strategies. But first, I need to have a pre-assessment. I need to know where we're starting. And so if you can get on that link. And it's only 2 questions. It's simple. Everybody good with me moving on? So we have an hour and a half today. We don't have to meet for the entire hour and a half. We'll see how it goes, see how far we get. And then I'm sure that we'll be here for an hour though. So I'm the last of the 3 that have presented. And what we're doing is Kentucky A-BRI thought about, what do Kentucky educators need? And so we decided that motivation was absolutely a great topic. So we've had 2 sessions so far, and I'm the 3rd. And on this slide, you're going to get, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around, but you're going to get the motivational training series, and it's on a YouTube. And what we did is we put it on the YouTube. It's got session 1, session 2, and then we'll have my session for session 3. And so if you want to go back and look at the first topic, which was the root causes and supports for those causes. And then we have the next one, which was PBIS. And so if you want to go back and get the whole thing of motivation, please do so. Let me know that you did. And then we'll check and see if we can get you some credit for watching those videos. But you will get, the links in the PowerPoint. So don't fret. So in Christy's session, this was the first session. She talked about root causes and strategies. And just a brief little thing about what she did. She did a fishbone analysis, and it's a great tool. It looks like a fish with the bones sticking out. And what she did is she modeled how to go through this root cause analysis. It's very helpful. It can be done with a group for school-wide situations, or it can be done in your classroom, just you, like a mind map. And what you do is you think about it and you say, well, why did that happen? And then you keep asking yourself a series of why questions. So once you go through this, you would get to, okay, so what can I do about it? And then you start working backwards to figure out what can you do from the get-go. Simplest thing first. And so once you get started with an analysis of the root cause, then you can move forward and say, okay, I can handle this. I can do this. If you've got a kiddo in your classroom that wants your attention, they have some behaviors that keep disrupting other people, then start looking at this behavior and work backwards, figuring out, why is this happening? And it might be just the simplest thing. Maybe the kiddo has got a little touch of ADHD and there's something outside the window that keeps taking their attention. And you can say, okay, I can deal with this. I'll pull the window shade down. I mean, whatever it may be. So start with the simplest thing, but you've got to know what's going on. So the fishbone analysis is a great tool. Christy talked about chronic absenteeism and how, we've got to get the kids there at school. I know that some of you guys that are joining me today have already been working on absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is when the kids miss 10% of the time that they are supposed to be in school. And so, like, out of 100 days, you've missed 10 days. So that would be a kiddo that would be chronically absent. Severely chronically absent is when you miss 20% of the school days. There's lots of reasons that kids miss school. Sometimes it's legit. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes the kiddos say, I'm not going to school and you can't make me. And the parent has a battle that sometimes they don't want to fight. And then sometimes, we've got parents that say, oh, I stayed up late, let's just skip today. So lots of different reasons. She also talked about the 3 encouraging words, which would be encouraging competency, encouraging belonging, and encouraging autonomy. And so what that actually means is encouraging and helping kids know how to do what you're asking them to do. Encouraging belonging, helping people fit in, helping them understand that, we are all different. I mean, we are as different as we can be, but we're comfortable with who we are. Sometimes people aren't comfortable with that. And so we have to encourage, how do you fit in? What's the best way to make this happen? And then the autonomy, the independence. Everybody is completely different. We learn differently. We show our knowledge differently. Sometimes it's that whole self-advocacy feeling where you have to advocate for yourself, because sometimes you're not necessarily wrong or you did the wrong thing, but it's how you respond to the people that may call you out for what happened. And that behavior often gets people in trouble a lot. So just teaching people how to respond to the situations that they're dealt with. And then the next session, and these are all, like I say, they have 1 hour videos each, but the next session is on PBIS. And so I expanded that just a little bit about PBIS and spring break, because PBIS is positive behavioral interventions and supports. And what that basically means is that it's the whole culture. It's creating a positive ways for parents to feel comfortable in the schools, for kids to feel comfortable in the schools, for adults to show that they're comfortable, and that everyone reaches out to be helpful. It's a team approach. PBIS is not just like a classroom strategy. This is the school-wide approach to teaching behavior expectations. If you want to know more, you can go to Nina's session that's on the YouTube channel. And you can also, Kentucky Avery at Cybers has a PBIS module that you can do. And lots of really good resources out there for PBIS. The co-ops have great resources for PBIS, lots of information. But it's all about being proactive, preventative, making sure that you're not just reacting to those behaviors and things that happen. So we get in front of them and try to set the stage for positive and set the stage for success. So then what matters? And this is a typical Avery, Kentucky Avery slide. I like it because it definitely helps us understand what matters. Instruction matters. And you have to teach. You know, you all have always heard, what do you do when a kid can't read? You teach them to read. What do you do when a kid can't write? You teach them to write. What do you do when behavior happens? You punish them. No, but we don't want to do that. And so it's all about teaching a positive behavior, teaching the positive skills, teaching that know-how. And so when we teach that know-how, we help kids understand, and adults. It could be adults that come into the building. They might have had a terrible experience when they were a child in the building, and that carried forward. And so now you have to let that adult know this is a safe place. We are okay. I could ask you a question. You could respond. Try not to ask yes, no questions. That doesn't get you anywhere, because yes, no, most people will answer yes just to get you off their back. And if they say yes, they think that's what you want to hear. Or, no, if that's what you want to hear. But so they will try to make you happy by answering. If you keep those questions open-ended, and then people answer with a sentence, and that helps so much because it helps give you another talking point so that you can move forward to the next situation. So I could say, Nina, why didn't you bring your student to school today? And Nina may say, I didn't, just because it wasn't worth fighting. It was just a battle. So I could pick up that fighting and I could say, well, Nina, what are you fighting about every day? What's the battle? And so then it could go one step leads to another. And you could carry on a conversation instead of just cutting it with a yes, no answer. Effectiveness, do the simplest thing first. Absolutely the simplest thing. Don't overthink it. Sometimes, like the ADHD example with the kiddo sitting by the window, sometimes it just takes moving away from the window or closing the window shade. So think of the simplest thing that can produce the positive behavior. And then adult behavior. We're going to talk a lot about adult behavior. Adult behavior matters. And unfortunately, the student will not change their behavior until adult behavior changes. And so sometimes you have to reframe, rephrase. You've got to take a step back, take a good breath, and say, let's start again. And that restart is okay. And that's actually a great skill that you could teach students as well. Teach them to have a restart. Okay. So then we go to the next slide. Some days are better than others. We know that absolutely 100%. Some days are better than others. Why is it important? What does the data say? Do I understand things the way things are? So you start asking your questions. Why are some days better than others? And so that's where you're going to start thinking about what is it that makes this behavior happen? Does the data say that, let's use Jessica. Does the data say that Jessica has a problem in Miss Ingram's class? Does Jessica have a problem in Miss Hayes's class? Or does Jessica only have a problem in my class? And so then we start to look at, is this something that I'm doing? Why are the variables different? And so that's where you start going back to data. And you could talk to your team members as well and try to analyze and go back to like the fishbone or a mind map to figure out why are things the way they are. Once you can understand it, you can do something about it. So think it through. So as you guys sit here, let's think through a situation that has happened in the past. So just kind of get a situation in your head. And then just kind of keep that in your head as we move forward. And then we get to this circles of control. I started doing this about 2 years ago, and it really makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you guys, does anybody see that little red line in the left-hand corner? What is that? I have no idea. Okay, even on full screen, it still shows. Okay, so the circles of control. The first thing is what you can control. You can control some things. You can't control everything. And a lot of people that get highly stressed, they get highly stressed because they are thinking of things that are out of their control, that they want to control, and that's really hard. So the only reason I'm showing this to you, it's from Stephen Covey, and I'm showing you this because you can control yourself. You can control things that you do, things that you say, how you think, times that you get places. You can control those things. You can control your self-care, how you take care of a really bad day. Things that you influence, you can influence a lot of people. Knowing that you are a big influence, you can influence your families, you can influence your students, your coworkers, you can influence a lot of things. You cannot control a lot of some things. You can't control others. If a behavior happens and you say, I'm going to get control of this, all you can do is be reactive and put forth punishment, put forth situations, circumstances. But you can influence how to calm down, how to move from one location to another. You can influence things like that. You can't control the time. You can't control how much things cost. You can influence things. such as what if we had a behavior outburst today and tomorrow is a new day? We know what the trigger was for the outburst. So what we may do is we may give a pre-correction or give a different prompt for an activity so we don't get the outburst that we got today. So you can influence things. You cannot control everything. The things that control you is the positive, the knowledge you've gained, things that control me. I'm old and gray. So I've had a lot of experience. I've talked to a whole lot of people. That is something that is a really positive. Things that are negative, I can't control what happens in the news. I can't control other people. I can't control if somebody runs out in front of me on the road and I have to slam on my brakes. I can't control that. So just think about how you handle your stress, and are you stressing over things that you truly can't control? And if you're not, start thinking in your head, how could I influence someone to make it a better outcome? And then that may be a game changer for you. So as we go through, the whole adult behavior matters, you start thinking about having the I can personality. And this is where if you were sitting next to somebody, you'd give them a high five and say, I can do this. And so that's my prompt for my opportunities to respond. So it's a high five. It's a, slap your own hand. Either way. And the I can personality, that's that person that has persistence. You only fail when you give up. That is absolutely 100% sure. So when you quit trying, that's when you fail. Determination. Do you have the determination to make it to the end? Do you have the determination to help this kiddo be the best that they can be on every given day? Do you have the patience to sit through the bad times, to take that deep breath? A gal that I used to work with, she used to say, when I get really, really stressed, what I do is I smell a flower and I blow out a candle. And she says, I did that over and over and over. And she said, it finally got to the point that I put a flower in my classroom and I had a candle, couldn't light it, but I had a candle and I could act like I was blowing it out. And so, you start thinking about things like that and it will help make that I can personality work. So in the chat, if you're online, I'd like you to check. Do you have an I can personality? You could say 5 is a yes, 3 is sometimes, 1 is I need some help with that. So in the chat, put your responses.
So we have a 4. Got 2 4s. Jessica and Rhonda were at a 4. And a 4, yes.
I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. So, okay. So, yeah. Okay. So then we continue to move forward and we start talking about this whole classroom management. So we know that some things are in our control, some things are out of our control. Classroom management is in your control. And so you can start thinking about, well, what is the best classroom management? It's the strategies, it's techniques, it's practices, it's how to create the best positive learning environment that you can in your classroom. And so it takes a lot of organization, it takes some thought, it takes looking at the space, the settings, where you got kids sitting. Are they next to people that they like to talk to? Do you have the fighters next to the fighters? I mean, you got to really think about, and be very, very intentional about how you're making things work. I was in one classroom once when I was a behavior consultant, and I went in to observe, and the teacher had the kids using pencils because it was a math class, and often they had to sharpen their pencil. And so, but as they went through, the rows were so tight that they would bump people as they got to the pencil sharpener. And that created major issues, but it wasn't realized until a third person comes in, an objective person, and says, let's just scoot the rows apart just a little bit right here in the alleyway. Helped tremendously. So you just think of the simplest things first. So for some reason, I froze. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is where it comes to a little bit of note taking. So I'm going to ask you later on about the 5 classroom management strategies or components. And so on your phone, on a piece of paper, wherever you want to write it, number 1, all you need to write is establishing rules and procedures. So just make sure you get that jotted down somewhere, because I'm going to ask again later. Now, I told you, I prompted you. So you would have success with this. Establishing rules and procedures. These are those clearly defined expectations. And, in your head, you could have a vision of how things are going to go. But if others don't see your vision, it may not happen. And so that's where we have to be very explicit and really help people see how we want this to happen. So routines and arrangements. This is like what the adult will do. And this is where you say it and you model it, you show them that how it's going to look. And this way, when you want students to do a particular activity, they do it the way it is in your vision, because you prompted, you modeled, you gave some feedback. And so we have to make sure that we're doing all of those components. Just telling them one time might not work. I always tell this story. When I was mowing the grass, I was using a riding lawnmower, and my husband came out and said, you need to slow down. I said, okay. And I slowed down on the foot pedal, but I still had it in high gear. But he didn't tell me, put it in gear 3. And so that's what we mean, is being very, very explicit in nature about the exact things that you want people to do. The active supervision, making sure you're looking at everyone. Eye contact is absolutely fantastic. Making sure that you see their eyes and they see yours. Give them a little smile. I mean, that's a great prompt for, you're doing okay. Rules and expectations. This one is what we want the students to do if they're successful. And so this is a student. So this is where we're going to ask for the student's participation. Give me a thumbs up. And you can model. Thumbs up, everybody okay? And then they will put their thumbs up. And so this is where you teach them how to do what you want. The where, the when, the why. You can give some sort of a code word that works really, really well, such as when you really want their attention, you may do a clap signal or a students, and then they would say, or what is it? Students, and then they go, yes, yes. And then, so you give them some sort of a format for answering. And then remind them often when you do things. So if you have trouble, if you're teaching with a PowerPoint and you have troubles with engagement, put some notes at the very, very bottom. of the PowerPoint. It works great. Just a reminder. So here's number two. Number two is building relationships. So classroom management has a lot to do with relationships. If people think that you like them, then they will do everything you ask. It's when they think that you don't care. And that's that whole body language, that being open and honest. And sometimes people do act out. Sometimes adults get out of line. Sometimes it's a co-worker or let's say it like this. Sometimes it's a teacher and a paraprofessional, and they may be talking and having a private conversation. They may be 5 feet tall, and there's a little 3-foot kiddo right under them. That 3-foot kiddo will hear everything you say, and that shapes their opinion on how things are happening. And so you watch that kind of language, that stuff, that when you look at your coworker or your co-teacher and you may like give a signal, well, others see those signals. So you've got to be very, very careful with how you're creating these relationships with people, and how you're using some signals or non-spoken words, things like that. Create that respectful, supportive classroom. So this one is where if people feel valued, they will jump over the moon for you. And so what you have to do is figure out something really, really personal about someone. And then you can say, I know that you really like blue. Here, why don't you try my blue pen today? And then that way you can just kind of help out a little bit. I've got a grand dog her name is Blue. I mean, wouldn't that be cool if a grandchild was in school and she says, I heard you've got a little blue in your family. You want to use the blue pen? And it would make that day for that kiddo. And so just simple things that you can say to someone, use their name. If you're going to write, like a great job, comma, name, great job, comma, Nina. And so you can put their name on there. This website, I don't know if you all have ever gone to Character Strong, but you can sign up for the Character Strong newsletters. It's free, and it's at characterstrong.com. When you go there, you can get all kinds of information. They've got different webinars, podcasts, and all kinds of information. They've got trainings that they offer for free, and then they've got things that you can sign up for also for a price. But they do these weekly sessions, and they're 2-minute little snippets of things to build relationships, increase engagement. This one is about greetings at the door. And so it's 4 at the door plus 1 more. And so just think about, we've heard threshold greetings. We have all heard that, stand at the door, greet the kids, give them a high five, touch, fist bump, whatever. But it really does make a difference. You have to teach kids how to enter and how to exit a classroom. And that will make it or break it, whether they want to come back tomorrow or not. And so when some people say, well, I have to stand in the hall. I have to stand over here. And so that could even be a possible job for someone, is to, I need your help. And then it's called meaningful jobs. And maybe a student could even help with some greetings at the door. When they exit, make sure you say something. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. If If it's a student that needs extra attention, call them by name. This one is about building relationships. And this one is called 2x10 strategy. And it's about giving non-contingent attention. And so you talk with, and you can't do this with every kid in your classroom. It just won't work. But if you have a special case where you need to build a relationship, where the student doesn't like your class, the student feels like they're falling behind, things aren't working well, 2x10 will work really well. And so what you do is you have 2 minutes for 10 days straight, and you talk with that student about anything but academics. This is where you would find out about, is the student on a football team? Does the student drive if they're older? What does the student like to do when they're home? What will they do on spring break? What did they do on spring break? And so you can incorporate this. And then after the 10 days, I like to see people fade this intervention, because otherwise the student will say, why aren't you talking to me anymore? And so you fade it to 1 minute. And then, so it takes about a full month. But at the end of this month, when you actually build a relationship with a student, it's just absolutely golden. This student will come back to you in years when you're old and gray, and they will come back and say, do you remember when you built that relationship with me? Do you remember getting me through the third grade? And they will remember that. And so, and that is the most meaningful thing you just wouldn't believe. I was in feeder supply one day, and a kiddo came up to me, well, it was a grown man. And he says, I want to thank you. And that was the second time that had happened. The other time I was in London in a White Castle. And, and then he says, you don't remember me, do you? I said, you really look familiar, but you're 6'4", and I didn't teach anybody 6'4". And so the student would say, well, I'm gonna call him Johnny just because. He says, I'm Johnny, and you taught me in the 7th grade, and you made a difference. And because of you, I could make it through high school. And it was some of the very simple strategies that we gave him. And he made it through high school. He was a high stress kiddo, but that just made all the difference in the world. And when they come back to you, and they will, guys, you all have no idea. They will come back to you, and it'll be completely out of the blue. And you'll go to your car, and you'll kind of tear up, and you'll say, geez, I didn't realize that. I wish I would have been nicer. No, all kinds of things, but it's just really interesting how, if we could see the future. But what we do know is every day you get that present, to be present every day and be in somebody's life. And so what you can do is you can encourage them, you can give them tools for success. So number 3, so far we've got 1, 2, and 3. In the chat, somebody write me, what is the first key component of classroom management?
I've got a couple answers with establish the rules and expectations, rules and procedures.
Okay. What about the second key component of classroom management?
Building relationships.
Excellent. And the third is an engaging lesson. And so make sure you write it down. Now, for this one, this is where we've got to be interesting. It's got to be challenging. And I know that if there's anyone in here that has a large class, such as like 28 kids, 24, you've got high, low, average, and other. You've got all kinds of abilities in your class. And so when you have all these abilities, you can't ignore the kids that have to go one step further, that challenging activity. You can't just teach to the middle because then even the lower kids still may not get it. So you've got to really think about how you're going to be moving forward. In Christie's session, that's the first session on the root cause analysis and strategy. She talked about scaffolding and gave some really good examples of that. And so we have to make sure that we have something for everyone in the classroom. And that will help reduce frustration. It will help reduce the whole mindset of, I don't need to go there. I already know all that. So making sure we're teaching to the high, the low, the medium, and the other. This website, this was a great one. Nina, I'm going to let you talk about this a little bit. This was from Nina. I had never heard of it before, but it's absolutely amazing.
It is an amazing website. It's called The First Five, and you receive a daily email, and it has a quote of the day, a handshake of the day, or greet the student at the door. It has videos that goes along with it, and it shows you can choose between the primary or the secondary, or if those don't work, you can go back to the archived. But you get an email about 7 o'clock every morning, and it has the just suggested things that you could do as strategies in your class, and different, and like your social emotional, you can include that in there too. But I'd highly suggest you sign up for the daily email. You will really enjoy it. Some days I just look at it for the fun of it. So
And that's good because a lot of schools have mandated that teachers have classroom meetings. And if you have a mandate or not, a classroom meeting is actually just that snippet of social time. And this can give you a talking point where you don't just have to make it up every day on your own. And I was really impressed by this. And it's free. So, yeah, free stuff we like. So, this one actually came from Champs. And it's a three-step process for communicating expectations. Teacher expectation, monitor student behavior, provide feedback. And the only thing that the Champs probably did wrong on this slide was it would have been great to have that be a circle because it continues over and over and over. Be specific when you teach the expectations. Tell them what your vision is, show them, model it for them, monitor how they're doing, and then give them feedback. And when you give feedback, make it specifics. Don't just say, good job, Patty. That's not what would create a better behavior. You have to always give feedback by acknowledging the effort of the student. And so it would be, Patty, I like the way you put be specific on that slide. And so you would make sure that you're acknowledging the actual behavior that someone did. This is another Champs expectation slide. And this one, when I was teaching in the classroom, I used Champs a lot. And what I did is, but I did it wrong. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, I put my Champs poster on the back wall. I should have had it up where I was teaching because then I would have been able to see that. First, let's talk about the conversation. And what I did is when there was group activities, when there was an activity for participation, not like a sit and get. I mean, I'm sorry, this is boring, but this is a sit and get. But if we were in the classroom, we would want people to have hands-on. And so you have to tell them how to have hands-on. And this Champs actually goes through all of the components for a hands-on activity. And so it tells them, what does participation look like? Is there any movement? Move your desk here, face this person. What's the activity? How do you get help if you need help? Do you raise your hand? Do you signal? I mean, how would it happen? What kind of conversation? Is that the voice level 2 or a voice level 1? And then supports and services. I'll come around and see if there's other supports that you all need as you're moving through this project. And so this was really, really helpful just to be able to go through each activity. And if you think about it, if an adult has a 60-minute class or a 90-minute block, however you may have your classes designed, you divide that up to create different sections of the day. And then for each section of the lesson, then you would actually be able to tell them, this is what it looks like. In my vision for this to be a perfect day, this is what it looks like. And don't take a lot of time, but definitely mention it. So then we've talked a little bit about opportunities to respond. This is that let's do it slide. So this is where, opportunities to respond, it really helps improve outcomes because we know that if students are engaged, they are hearing you, they're listening, they're repeating, they're helping others. And once they do that, then they can also move forward with their learning. They may be the peer tutor, they may be helping others. And so lots of different ways to have opportunities to respond. We've got verbal, so they can respond by choral reading, they can respond by being called on, they can respond in different ways. They can have written responses, so it could be write on your whiteboard and flip it up. It could be doing an answering questions, however you want. The physical component, stand up, sit down, thumbs up, thumbs down, however physically you could get them to move. Peer, turn and talk to your elbow partner, turn and talk, lots of peer conversations, talk as a small group. And then the digital version. Do you have something in your classroom where you can poll the audience or have them log in, have them make a product using a PowerPoint type of a design or just on their screen, and then they can make it and then show the screen. So lots and lots of ways for people to respond and not just a sit and get, just sit there and listen to me. Sorry about that. Now, okay, so then we're still talking about the engaging lessons. So this effective communication, it's one of the best things that we can do. At Kentucky Avery, a couple years ago, we had a book study on better conversations. And this is an absolutely phenomenal book. It's an easy read. And what it does, it helps improve relationships and it will help improve the way that you communicate with others. It might be coworkers, it might be partners that come into the classroom, it might be para ed, it could be anyone, it could be students, families, mental health providers, but just making sure that we are communicating in the best way and keeping it very simple. This was my huge takeaway from this book. And you teach it and you tell about it. And so you make explicit knowledge known. And so this is where 2 + 3 = 5. That is how it is. That is the absolute, that's what it is. 2 + 3 = 5. So tacit knowledge, you start to talk about, I was at my house and I got this pond and I saw 2 ducks on the pond. And then all of a sudden 3 more came. And then, you kind of show them how it adds up. And then lo and behold, I had 5 ducks on my pond. And so you help people understand exactly how um, it works and how the explicit knowledge 2 plus 3 equal 5, how that happens. And so, and I know that's a very elementary example, but you can use it just across the board. It works so well when people tell more stories to engage students and let them visualize what you're talking about. So meaningful work. Is everybody still with us? Everybody doing good? This is where I need your help. And then, so meaningful work, this is where we give people jobs and they can do jobs in the classroom. They could do jobs for like a group work where if someone's doing table talk time and you have to have a timekeeper, you got a runner, you got a reporter, you got a recorder. And so these are just out of, a simple group work assignment. But think about it, meaningful work. If you've got a student that struggles to come to school, if they had a job every day that they could do, and then you set them up for success, they will want to come to school every day to do their job, such as, um, Patty, when you come to school, I want you to stop by the office. I'm going to give you a small piece of paper and I want you to put it in each teacher mailbox. And that would be Patty's job at the beginning of the day, every day. And then when she comes through, um, you could have it like the lunch menu. It could be whatever you're going to do. And then they could have, I need you to take this. I've got 3 errands today. Could you do those? Yes. And then give them envelopes. You could take a envelope to 3 different teachers and set the kiddo up for success. And so then once you do that, you have to have somebody with positive feedback on the other end. And so the feedback is so important. And they would say, Patty, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your morning to deliver this mail. And then once you do that day after day, first day, okay. Second day, not bad. Third day, the kid's going to say, I can't miss. I gotta do my job. They're counting on me. But you set them up for success. So this is the fourth classroom management strategy. And this is behavioral strategies. And this one is using positive reinforcement, rewards, things like that. Write it down because I remember I'm going to be asking you later on, what are the 5 strategies or the 5 key components? I'm giving you lots of strategies, but the 5 key components. And so this component has to do with the reinforcement, the rewards. Always teach that actions equal consequences. Consequences aren't necessarily negative consequences. Actions equal consequences. You do all your work in class, consequence, you have no homework. You do you stand in line quietly, consequence, we get a little bit more time to do our classroom meeting and have, I'll give you a little social time. So positive consequences, negative consequences happen too, but you have to teach them. Make sure that you let them know what's going to happen. So this is where effective reinforcement systems are like the consequences. You are always reinforcing things. So you clarify your expectations. Good reinforcement systems are easy to use. They capture a student's attention. They're age appropriate. We set up for frequent success. Sometimes people do, they have to earn so many points and then they get something. Well, that's a great strategy. It's first earn these points, then you get this. But the problem is sometimes those points, there's so many points, it takes them forever to earn them. So start off small so that the frequency's there. They can earn things and then, okay, now let's do this. We're going to make the consequence a little bit bigger, a little bit more fancy. The reward's a little bit bigger, a little bit more fancy. But this time I want you to earn 10 points before you get it. But you've got to start somewhere to build the momentum. So, and it's called behavior momentum, so that the students will move forward. Antecedent strategies, this is something that happens before a behavior concerns. This is let's talk before we begin type of thing, making sure that we are talking with people, that we're increasing the positive motivation, that we set the stage for success. One time in my career, it was really interesting. I was actually teaching an EBD classroom, and we ran out of classrooms in my school building. And they put me on the stage in the gym. And that was, oh my goodness. So I was on stage, you could hear other things on the side of the wall. And somebody told me, okay, we're setting the stage for you. And so, and I'll never forget that because I could look at the setting the stage two different ways. But it was pretty interesting. But we took what we had and we made it work. But if we didn't have the, you know, the nonverbal prompts, the ability to get attention when we needed it, it was pretty loud on the other side, and it would have been very, very tough. So we had to set the stage, and we had to pre-think everything that we did so that we could have a productive classroom. This is a Kentucky Avery slide. You guys have probably all seen this, but I like the way Dr. Terry Scott talks about it. He talks about the predictable failures. What can we do to prevent failure? How will we maintain consistency? And then how will we know if it's working? So you think about it. If I were to come into your class tomorrow and you tell me, you set me up and you say, now you'll see Nina over there. She's not going to do a thing I say. And then I'll say, and then I'll give her, I'll listen to that. And then I would say, I'll tell you what, I will give you $100 worth of product if when I come, Nina doesn't have that problem. If Nina's doing what you say. And what you would do as a teacher is you would front load it. And you would say, Nina, here's what I need you to do. And this is why. And you would go like that, and you would follow through, and you would give Nina a little prompts, and you would give her those thumbs up on the side, and you would say, okay, go girl, go. You're doing great. And so then all that's going to work, and you're going to win for the day. But how do you maintain it? And so that's what we're talking about. If you could do it one time, you can do it again. You just have to figure out the simplest way to get the best result. And then you keep it up. Okay, number 5, here we go. Number 5 is the classroom organization. Now with this one, we're talking about arranging the physical space. We're promoting learning. We're looking at those seat assignments. We're making sure we got an alley down to the pencil sharpener so nobody's bumping people. It needs to be very clear, and everybody needs access for everything that they do or need. If you've got students that are going to the front to get a book, they got to have a way to get there, or you have to have a process to get those books out to people. And so just think about your organization for the classroom. So then we go to intervention strategies. There's no substitute for a good program. And this was from JKM, sorry about that, which is that safe crisis management. And so I liked this slide from them. And there is no substitute for a good program. There's no excuses. Excuses don't get grades. Excuses don't get homework. Excuses don't make a good day. And so you have to start thinking, well, what could I do differently? So you have to organize, you provide the structure, you build those relationships, and you work from the positive. Don't wait till things go really bad and then say, class, I didn't like the way that happened. So you work from the positive. Everybody's looking at me. Right now is the time to do it. And so you start there and you don't let it get out of hand before you move forward. And then on the flip side, you've got to also think about, when do you end an activity? Don't keep that activity going forever, because activities will end themselves. And if they go too long, they usually end in a negative way. And so what you have to do is you have to cut it before things go sour. So you're doing the activity, things are really, the kids are talking, group work's going great, and then you interrupt and say, group, here's what we need to do now. You all have worked so well. I'll give you more time later, but right now I need to tell you this. And that way you're stopping when everything is going really good. And then you can build on that momentum for the next activity. Sometimes people just let the activities go too long and then they get negative. So then we have, if we were sitting together in a classroom, we would have a table talk situation. Good classroom management helps students succeed. We all know that. We all know that classroom management starts with the adults. We know that it starts with the adult behavior. We know that it starts with the adult pre-planning things and not just planning on the fly. You've got to think about it. You've got to be proactive. Don't wait too long. And so this is where the 5 components. So what are the 5 components? And so you don't have to put them in the chat, but I just want you to think through, do you have them all in writing? So the first component, establishing rules and procedures. The second component, building relationships. Third component is engaging lessons. Fourth component, behavioral strategies. Fifth component, classroom organization. So if we have all of those things in play, we have them all together, and then what we can do is we can move forward. But if you feel that something isn't right, that's where we have to readjust. So you guys have an absolute amazing opportunity right now because you're getting ready to have spring break. When spring break kids come back, you have the fresh start component. You can revisit your PBIS. You can revisit what has been going on in their lives a little bit, talk to them, build those relationships. You have the ability right after spring break to reset everything that's going on. You may want to change up your classroom. You may want to change some seating assignments. So you have all those. The only thing I would encourage you to do, though, if you're going to look at seating assignments, don't only change 1 or 2 children. You must change everyone, because otherwise they're going to say, what, you didn't like me? You don't like where I'm sitting? So they're going to take it personally. So look at changing things up. You get this one opportunity. Whatever you do when kids come back from spring break, that's going to front load the next 6 to 8 weeks until school's over. And so just really, really think about these classroom components and what we need to do moving forward and how we could get the biggest bang for your buck and how to help folks as they move forward. It could be also in a co-teaching situation. What would you choose to do different with your co-teacher? What would you choose to do different with your para-ed? And so this is where you get this fresh start component. And then you be the I can do personality, and you make it happen. Remember, don't stress over things you can't control, but you can stress over things that you can influence. And so if you can influence it, let's help have a really good end of the year. This may also be the time where you create some motivators, that mystery motivator, something in a bag hanging on the wall. You get so many points, you earn something, some little tally marks, helping kids understand how to do some self-monitoring and to tally the things that they've done or tally the pages in math that they've completed or whatever it may be. Once you get to so many tally marks, then you get a reward of some sort. It doesn't have to cost money. It can be very simple. Um, and it can be something as simple as, I know we got line leaders and those people like in the elementary grades, they're assigned line leaders, but maybe this is the second person and this meaningful job of some sort. Whatever it may be, it might be just a piece of candy or a mint or something that you're going to give a student. So just be thinking of how you can create, different ways to encourage and different ways to respond to the behaviors that you want to see instead of responding to behaviors that you don't want. So then later on the post assessment, you're going to be asked for a strategy that you could implement right after spring break. And so be thinking about what could you do? What could you enhance? What simple thing could turn things around for you? And it could be something as simple as redecorating the classroom, putting up some new posters, taking some down. It could be very, very simple things. And you could even make, your spring jobs list and make it a little bit different or rewrite or retitle some of those jobs. Everybody sees this triangle. We got to have triangle in every session we do. So this one is just shows you about the MTSS, multi-tiered system of support. And it just shows you that most kids are going to be in tier 1. Some kids are in tier 2, fewer in tier 3. The way I explain this the best is I use a fire alarm example. Fire alarm goes off, beep, beep, beep. And then you say, okay, class, line up. 80% of the kids are going to get in line without a second statement. You may have a few that are strugglers and they have a problem getting in line. So you're going to tell them where to get. Nina, get behind Patty. Jessica, get behind Nina. So you're going to tell them, give them explicit directions. And then you got 1 or 2 that may need another additional prompt. And you may say, Rhonda, come over here and grab my hand and we're going to go out. And so that's how this tiered system works. Everybody gets what they need. Not everybody needs everything, but they get what they need when they need it. Keeping in mind this whole triangle approach, you may have a student that's extremely bright in math, extremely bright, but social skills isn't their thing. And so for that student, you would want to encourage better behavior. You would want to encourage how to enter and exit a classroom. You would want to tell them more things about what they need to know. Then on the flip side, you've got those God-born leaders, and they may have the worst behavior ever. The kid follows them, but they can't do academics. And so they act up so that nobody notices that they can't do academics. They can't read well. And so with that student, that's where we get those reading interventions. And then we also teach strategies of how to handle when we go to reading. And so everybody gets what they need with the MTSS umbrella. And I know some districts have an MTSS document. Some are working on their document. Some it's a live document and it's a work in progress, let's say. So this is really, really a good example, though. And then you have to think, if you are a teacher in a classroom, most para-eds don't get a lot of training. They don't understand this concept. And so we have to help the other adult in the room understand as well. So we can move forward with that. And then that will help decrease frustration. It will help everyone understand. So then we've this one is about the Cybers website. Let's see, we are how much time? Okay, we've been at this for an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to stop in about 5 more minutes. So this talks about the Cybers website. It's cybers.com. There is a PBIS module on there. And when you go to this, you would go to the courses and then scroll through the courses. There's several courses that would be really, really great for people to watch and do. If you were going to take a course, or maybe the para-eds don't get a lot of options to go to a training or preschool or whoever it may be, this would be a great place to go and get training. And we have lots of different trainings on there as well. But, and most are module situations. And what that means is that a module doesn't take a lot of time. There's guided notes, there's a short video, and then there's some reflection time. And so as you move through, each lesson builds upon the other lesson. And that just a little bit about where the PBIS module is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and then let's see here. I'm going to expand this a little bit. Move down. Hope I don't make y'all dizzy. This one, we talked a little bit about students responding to invitations for involvement. And I'm going to see. So the students respond to everything that we do. Teaching a strategy. This is when we actually teach the student how to think and act. And that is something that is a skill. Someone taught you all this skill as you were going through life. And it's up to us to teach the people that we educate. Strategy can be successful or unsuccessful. It can be effective or efficient. And I'm showing you this, and this is it's a Kansas learning strategy. And so I'm showing you because I am a PDer for the strategic instruction model, which means there's content enhancement routines and there's learning strategies. There's all kinds of strategies available. I can do these, and and usually the manuals aren't very expensive. And you go through and you teach. Slant strategy. Some people have used the slant. They didn't realize that this was a Kansas learning strategy, but it's sit up, lean forward, activate your thinking, name key information, and track the talker. And so you use the strategies. There's several different versions of slant out there. This one is about self-advocacy, and I have found that this skill is absolutely amazing because it helps young people like middle school and high school be able to really understand where they are in life. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this because I tried it, but what I did is with this student, is I had the student do the self-advocacy strategy. And then what she did is she made me a PowerPoint to go back over it with people. And that way I knew that she got it, that she understood the strategy. She could say, and being an advocate is having a voice for someone or something. When you're self-advocacy, it means you have a voice for yourself. You keep your own schedule, you get your work done. And so just think, if people actually did some of these strategies and then they turned around and presented it to other people, we could reward, we could have a contest, we could do all kinds of things. But it's so cool. Let me see if this will play. Can you hear it? Okay, so share computer sound. Okay, we're gonna try it one more time.
Strategy. I just finished the introduction and it was talking about what advocacy and self-advocacy mean.
Okay, so then as we
My
went,
name is
nope,
Alexa.
sorry. And then as we went through like the self-advocacy strategy, it teaches the kids, sit up, have a pleasant voice, activate your thinking, relax. But I thought I'm going to play just a smidget of this. But
I just watched the share section and I'm going to tell you guys about what it was doing in it. First is S. S stands for sit up straight. You have to sit up straight and you have to make sure it's good, because if you're crunching down, it will think that the people don't care. H is for have a pleasant tone of voice.
okay, so you kind of get the idea. But it really helps students to be able to say, I learned this skill, and since I know how to do this, now I can tell you about it. And then if they can put a little bit of that tacit knowledge in there and tell a little story as it goes, I mean, it's a great way to actually create a product. And, the student could take it home, they could have all kinds of information. With the rest of this PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and give you the entire PowerPoint, but it also, I've got some Clayton Cook, Diana Browning Wright information just about classroom management. So here's some tips in the green from them. I also have some high quality instruction tips in the blue from Kentucky Avery. And then just some miscellaneous slides from Nina, actually, about PBIS and just about doing simple things. This one right here it's a video, and some people have seen this every opportunity video. If you have not, it's an absolutely excellent video. And what I did is I left everything in the PowerPoint mode so that you could just get the links from there. And then I also have a resources page that has the links on it as well. So what we need to do now is we need to do a post-assessment. And then what I will do is I will send out the information to you guys. I think the only ones in a large class format is in Jackson County. And what I'll do, Tracy, is I'll send you the PowerPoint, then you can send it out to everyone else and send me a sign-in sheet. So I have it. And then again, like I say, I mean, this was a sit and get. This wasn't a true, here's all the opportunities to respond, and I want you all to practice them and do them. But we front loaded them a little bit by telling you what some of them were. And the biggest thing with making it really, really good between now and the end of school is to do these key components and really think in your world, what do they look like and how can you do the absolute best key components of classroom management?